And that picture of him at his graduation, it's like this powerful image of change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. It shows that, change is possible in this environment, that there are ways to break free.
But here's where things get really interesting and kind of troubling. Solin Roman, he went back to Manenberg. He went back to the place he fought so hard to leave.
And that's the big question, right? Why would anyone go back to a place as dangerous as that? Especially after all he went through to get out.
It's a question a lot of people are asking, especially those who saw him go through this transformation. They're worried he went back too soon. He's posting these TikTok videos. It's like he's announcing his return.
It's almost like he's taunting his old enemies. It's like he's saying, I'm back and I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah, but that's what worries people. He's putting himself in danger. And the fact is, the gang violence in Manenberg, it hasn't stopped. It's still going on.
Right. The gangs are still there. The rivalries are still there. Nothing has really changed.
It was a true turning point.
Like a chance at a new beginning.
And it's not like he just went through the motions.
No, he was all in.
Committed himself to, graduated from the program.
Wow.
But then he does something even more remarkable.
What's that?
He doesn't just walk away and forget where he came from.
Oh, wow.
He becomes a mentor for other kids caught up in gang life.
That's powerful.
Yeah, someone who could actually say, hey, I've been there.
Yeah.
I know what it's like.
You can get out too.
That kind of authenticity can really resonate.
Absolutely. It's a beacon of hope in a place that desperately needs it.
But then, Solin makes a decision that no one expected.
He goes back.
He goes back to Manenberg.
To Manenberg.
And not quietly, he's posting videos saying, I'm back.
I'm back.
Can you imagine the reaction?
Must have been a shock.
For some people, it might have been inspiring.
A sign that you can go back.
Reclaim your community.
But for others, especially those still in the gangs, it could have been seen as a threat.
A challenge.
Don't forget, he'd already been shot twice before he even left.
Oh, right.
So going back like that so publicly, it was a huge risk.
We're going last standing. Dead for Americana. Hard-loving kill my bruiser. Everyone kill my brothers. The point of view is, I kill hard-loving army. The point of view is, God is good all the time.
We talk a lot about tough neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But Manenberg in Cape Town, South Africa, I mean, that's a whole other level of tough.
It really is. When you dive into what life is like there, you start to understand that phrase, daily struggle for survival. It's not just words.
No. It's not, and that's where Solin Roman comes in, his story. It's kind of at the center of this deep dive we're doing.
Right from the beginning, you see this young man. He's basically trapped in this world of gangs and violence, but he wants out.
Yeah, and it's like his brother's murder, Leroy. His brother. It's like that was the moment, the thing that made him realize he had to get out.
It was a major turning point. And it wasn't just him saying, oh, I got to get out of here. It was a real deep decision. You can see that.
And then he finds Sons of God's Reach.
Yeah.
It's a faith-based program, and it's like a lifeline. It's a way out.
And he doesn't just participate. He becomes a mentor, too. So he's helping others try to escape that life as well.
And that picture of him at his graduation, it's like this powerful image of change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. It shows that, change is possible in this environment, that there are ways to break free.
But here's where things get really interesting and kind of troubling. Solin Roman, he went back to Manenberg. He went back to the place he fought so hard to leave.
And that's the big question, right? Why would anyone go back to a place as dangerous as that? Especially after all he went through to get out.
It's a question a lot of people are asking, especially those who saw him go through this transformation. They're worried he went back too soon.
That he's not really ready for it, that he might be pulled back into that life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do here is to really understand what's going on, what's happening in a place like Manenberg. What makes it so hard to escape this world of gangs and violence? We're using Solin's story to try to get a handle on all of this.
It's not a simple story. This isn't just a black and white good versus bad situation. This is about real life and survival and making really tough choices.
So let's talk about Manenberg itself. The place, the environment, what's it like?
Well, the sources we have, they paint a pretty grim picture. I mean, they talk about survival as a daily battle and that the streets whisper the names of those lost to gang wars.
Wow. It's interesting you see that because you see signs of that violence everywhere. Even something as simple as graffiti. It's a constant reminder of the gangs.
Right. It's like they're marking their territory. They're always present. They're always watching.
And the people who live there, they live in constant fear.
Yeah.
Kids are afraid to walk to school. Schools have to shut down because of the violence.
There's a quote from one resident who describes Manenberg as terrible and terrifying. Just imagine living like that every day, wondering if you're going to be safe.
Yeah, and it's not just a feeling. The violence is real, especially on weekends. Like, it explodes. You've got shootings, people getting caught in the crossfire.
It's a community under siege. It's a war zone, basically. And that's the world Solin Roman grew up in.
And he wasn't just a bystander. He was part of it. He was a gang member.
Right, and the thing that made him want to leave was his brother's murder, Leroy. His brother was killed, and that's when Solin decided he had to change his life.
It was a turning point, like we said before. And then he found Sons of God's Reach, and that really helped him turn things around.
And he really embraced it. He became a mentor. He wanted to help other young people avoid the mistakes he made.
But then he goes back. And the way he does it is interesting, too. He's posting these TikTok videos. It's like he's announcing his return.
It's almost like he's taunting his old enemies. It's like he's saying, I'm back and I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah, but that's what worries people. He's putting himself in danger. And the fact is, the gang violence in Manenberg, it hasn't stopped. It's still going on.
Right. The gangs are still there. The rivalries are still there. Nothing has really changed.
And people think he's still a target. His brother was killed, and they think Solin could be next.
He's already been shot twice. Remember, so it's not like he hasn't been in danger before.
It's like he's going back to the lion's den. The sources actually use that phrase, lurk. They say the danger is still lurking in Manenberg.
So why is this gang life so appealing to young people in Manenberg? Why do they join these gangs?
Well, a big part of it is poverty. There's no jobs, there's no opportunities, so the gang becomes a way to make money.
And it's also about protection. In a place like Manenberg where there's so much violence, joining a gang can feel like the only way to stay safe.
The sources mention two main gangs, the Americans and the Hard Livings. And they basically control the community. They rule through fear.
Right. And they offer this sense of belonging. They call themselves a family. They try to create this bond, but it's a bond built on violence and crime.
And it's not just the gang members who suffer. The mothers of these young men, they live in constant fear. They're afraid for their sons.
And the tattoos, they're a big part of this too. They're a sign of commitment, a sign that you're in it for life.
And it's hard to get rid of a tattoo. It's like a permanent reminder of your past.
So you've got this war going on between the Americans and the Hard Livings. They're fighting for control of the drug trade, and they're fighting for power.
And the people who live in Manenberg, they're caught in the middle.
Yeah.
They're the ones who get hurt.
One resident called it living hell on earth. I mean, that's a pretty powerful statement.
So that's the world Solin Roman escaped from. And now he's back in it. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And it makes you wonder what's going through his mind.
So what can be done? What are the solutions to this problem of gang violence in Manenberg?
Well, it's not an easy problem to solve. It's going to take a lot of effort from a lot of people.
But the sources do mention some things that could help.
Like creating jobs. If you give people a way to make a living, they're less likely to join a gang.
And programs for young people. Like sports music education. Things that give them something to do besides hanging out on the streets.
And better policing. The police need to be more effective and they need to be less corrupt.
And rehabilitation programs for people who want to leave the gangs.
Yeah.
They need help getting back on their feet.
It's a long road, but it's not impossible to make a difference in a place like Manenberg.
And maybe Solin Roman's story can be part of that change. Even though he went back, maybe he can still be an example to others.
Maybe his return can inspire people to fight for change, to make Manenberg a better place.
It's easy to look at tough situations from the outside and wonder why people just don't leave, just get out.
Right.
But it's rarely that simple, is it?
No, not at all.
When we talk about places entrenched in violence, like gang violence, it's often so much deeper than just choosing to walk away.
Yeah, exactly.
I take Manenberg in Cape Town, South Africa, for example. It's been gripped by gang warfare for decades. And the idea of escaping that life can seem completely impossible.
It's not even just a place with a gang problem. It's a place where gangs are like interwoven into the fabric of society. They control so much.
Yeah.
It's not easy to just walk away.
Right. And Solin Roman, who did manage to break free from that life,
Wow.
built a new path for himself, found something beyond the gangs, but then chose to return.
Return.
Yeah.
Wow.
Went back.
That's incredible.
We want to explore why someone would willingly go back to such a dangerous place.
It really makes you think about what escaping that kind of life really means.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And to really get Solin's story, we need to understand Manenberg itself.
Yeah.
Like, how did it become this way?
Mm.
And it's important to remember that it wasn't some sort of natural progression.
Right.
You know, this was during apartheid, and Manenberg was basically created through very deliberate policies.
Oh, wow.
Things like forced removals, overcrowding, a real lack of resources.
Yeah.
All designed to keep certain communities down.
Right.
And that, unfortunately, created the breeding ground for crime and gangs.
Makes sense when you don't give people the means to build a stable life.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things are going to fill the void.
Exactly.
And into that void came some really powerful gangs, most notably the Americans and the Hard Livings.
Yeah, I mean, these weren't just small-time gangs. These were major forces. They controlled so much of daily life in Manenberg.
And it's not just about turf wars or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
their entire presence.
Yeah.
You know, the constant threat of violence.
Yeah, like the gunfire. It's not random.
Right.
It's about power.
Yeah.
It's about sending a message.
And then you have the schools,
The schools are struggling.
not just from lack of funding or resources, but
The threat is always there.
yeah.
You know, gangs trying to recruit kids, violence spilling over from the streets.
So for people living in Manenberg, just going about your day must be,
It's a calculation.
yeah.
Who are you seen with? Where are you at what time?
Right.
One wrong move could be deadly.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this is where the gangs start to become almost like a distorted form of economy,
Yeah, it's a weird sort of substitute.
especially for young boys.
Especially for young boys when there are so few other options.
Right, when you don't have legitimate ways to make a living.
Yeah, the gangs offer money even if it's illegal. They
Yeah.
offer protection and probably the most important thing, a sense of belonging.
Right, that community.
Yeah.
The family you don't have elsewhere.
Exactly.
And that's where Solin's story begins.
Right in the heart of it all.
He's born into this world. It shapes his entire understanding of how things work.
It's not like he chose this life.
Right.
It chose him.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he gets involved in the gang life like so many others.
It becomes his reality, his normal.
Yeah.
But then something happens that really changes things.
His brother,
Yeah, his older brother, Leroy. He's killed.
another victim of the gang violence.
And for Solin, this wasn't just another statistic. You know.
Right, this was personal.
This was family.
This was a huge wake-up call.
Yeah. I mean, to see the violence up close like that, to lose someone so close,
Must have been devastating.
devastating.
And for a lot of people, I imagine that kind of loss would fuel the fire.
You know, the anger, the desire for revenge.
Yeah, just pull you deeper into that world.
But with Solin, it seems to have had the opposite effect. Like he realized he needed a different path.
He had to get out.
Had to.
And that's where Sons of God's Reach comes in.
Ah, yes, a faith-based rehab program.
Right. Seems like they provided him with a real alternative.
Oh, way out.
Yeah. And that these kinds of programs are so important in places like Manenberg.
They're a lifeline.
Yeah.
Not just getting people away from the violence, but helping them rebuild their lives.
Providing that support system, that structure.
Exactly. Counseling, job, training a community that cares.
And for Solin, it sounds like this was more than just a program. It was a true turning point.
Like a chance at a new beginning.
And it's not like he just went through the motions,
No, he was all in.
committed himself to, graduated from the program.
Wow.
But then he does something even more remarkable.
What's that?
He doesn't just walk away and forget where he came from.
Oh, wow.
He becomes a mentor for other kids caught up in gang life.
That's powerful.
Yeah, someone who could actually say, hey, I've been there.
Yeah.
I know what it's like.
You can get out too.
That kind of authenticity can really resonate.
Absolutely. It's a beacon of hope in a place that desperately needs it.
But then Solin makes a decision that no one expected.
He goes back
He goes back to Manenberg.
to Manenberg.
And not quietly, he's posting videos saying, I'm back.
I'm back.
Can you imagine the reaction?
Must have been a shock.
For some people, it might have been inspiring.
A sign that you can go back.
Reclaim your community.
But for others, especially those still in the gangs,
Yeah,
it could have been seen as a threat.
a challenge.
Don't forget, he'd already been shot twice before he even left.
Oh, right.
So going back like that so publicly, it was a
Yeah.
huge risk.
And that brings us to the core of this deep dive.
The big question,
Yeah.
why would he go back?
After everything he'd been through.
It's easy to judge from the outside,
Yeah, just stay away, you were safe.
but it's never that simple, is it?
No. And the information we have really highlights that complexity.
It's layers upon layers.
So what are some of the reasons why someone might make that choice.
Well, there's the loyalty factor.
To home, to family.
Yeah, no matter how bad things are, it's still where he's from.
It's his community.
His roots.
And maybe there's a need to prove something.
To himself, to the people who stayed behind.
That he's not scared.
That he's strong enough to face his past.
On his own terms.
Right.
And then there's the practical side of things.
Like finding work.
Yeah, we know that it can be really hard to build a stable life after being involved in gangs.
The stigma is real.
Yeah.
And for Solin, maybe the opportunities just weren't there outside of Manenberg.
Even if it meant going back to a dangerous place.
Sometimes it feels like the only choice.
Right.
Even if it's a dangerous one.
But maybe the most powerful reason is the desire to inspire change.
From within.
He's living proof that there's a way out.
He's a symbol of hope.
And maybe he felt a responsibility to show others that it's possible.
Powerful, but so risky.
Incredibly risky. Because let's not forget, the gangs are still in control.
The Americans and the hard livings, their grip on Manenberg is strong.
They operate through fear, through the drug trade, and this idea that loyalty is everything.
Once you're in for life.
And that's why Solin's return is such a challenge to them.
He represents everything they don't want people to believe.
He's proof that you can break free.
That there are other options.
That the gangs don't have absolute power.
And that's a dangerous message to send in that environment.
So taking a step back from Solin's story.
Looking at the bigger picture.
What are some potential solutions for a place like Manenberg?
It's a complex issue.
Yeah, for someone listening trying to grasp how change could even begin.
Where do you even start?
What needs to happen?
Well, based on the information we have, there are a few key areas.
Okay.
First, you need to create real economic opportunities.
Jobs
that offer a future.
If young people have viable alternatives.
They're less likely to be drawn into the gangs.
Right.
Second, education and youth programs.
Give kids a sense of belonging.
A purpose, a path that doesn't involve crime.
And third, we have to address the law enforcement issues.
The lack of accountability.
Yeah.
The gangs operate with impunity.
That'll have to change.
And finally, strong rehab and support systems.
For people who do manage to leave gang life.
Help them stay out, build new lives.
It's a huge undertaking.
Not a quick fix by any means.
But every individual who breaks free is a victory.
A step in the right direction.
So we're left with this question. What does it truly take to escape a life of violence?
Deeply entrenched violence.
Is it enough to just physically leave?
Or is there an obligation to try and change the environment you left behind?
Solin's story really forces us to confront that question.
There's no easy answer.
No. But it makes it clear that action is essential.
Both on a personal level.
And a community level.
If we want to break these cycles.
It really leaves you wondering if true escape means more than just getting out.
Maybe it means healing the place that shaped you.
And what does that even look like?
I don't know, but it's something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.